And then one more area that I hope nation states start paying greater attention to is the rise of cryptocurrency, because what looks like a very interesting and somewhat exotic effort to literally mine new coins in order to trade with them has the potential for undermining currencies, for undermining the role of the dollar as the reserve currency, for destabilizing nations, perhaps starting with small ones, but going much larger. So when we think about this new environment in which we find ourselves that we've been discussing for the last some minutes, we can't just think about nation states. And then one more area that I hope nation states start paying greater attention to is the rise of cryptocurrency.
Gotta say, I love the haircut. Looks really great on her, makes her look younger. But she raises a very important topic, a very important conversation, and most people are unaware of how a nation's financial system works. And how could they? You don't learn this stuff at school. And any economist that you can talk with is going to explain to you why the current financial system is unsustainable. And there's several reasons for it. The main reason is politicians promising free shit. So if you want to get elected in most nations around the world, you can promise people free stuff. You can promise them free healthcare, you can promise them free education, you can promise them welfare. And these are things that people will vote for you. But the problem is that these things aren't free. As far as I know, I've yet to see a hospital in the world where you have slaves as doctors and they're made to work for free. No, they're being paid. Someone pays to keep the lights on in that free healthcare system. And that someone is the taxpayer. So what the politician does really is he is promising he's going to take money from some people and give it to another group of people. It's a redistribution of wealth. This is why we don't really have any capitalist nation in 2021. We have mixed economies. Even the United States, officially, they consider themselves to be a mixed economy because you have social programs. You take money from some people and you give it to others. Now, of course, many people can say, well, this is just, this is okay, it's humane, it should be like this. And that's one opinion to have, but the problem is that you need to have at all time more people contributing into the system than there are people taking out from the system. So in other words, if you have a population decline, which means you're going to have more elderly people than working people, than young, energetic working people, what ends up happening is that the system collapses like a Ponzi scheme. Because there's more people that require things from the system, like the elderly who require more healthcare, they require more, sometimes welfare, and they're not contributing, they're not driving the economy, it's the young people. And this is what creates a crisis. Because you have people that paid their entire life into the system expecting a pension when they retire, and now the government can't pay them. So many governments tried coming up with different solutions for this problem. Some of them tried making loans from banks, like the IMF, for example. And what they're doing is they're kicking the can down the road. What they're doing is like, okay, I don't want the crisis to happen when I'm in power. The crisis can happen 10 years down the road when someone else is in power, and they're going to have to deal with it. And the next politician that's coming, he makes another loan and another loan, and the debt just rises and rises and rises until nations are incapable of paying the debt. And every economist that I know of is going to confirm this, that the debt is becoming so high that nation states are going to have to default on it. Another way that they try to fix this problem is by printing money. And by printing money, what ends up happening is that for a while it works, the system stabilizes, you put a band-aid on it, but you cause inflation. And the more and more inflation you have, the more and more people are going to realize that they don't want to use your currency. So when people don't want to use your currency, they're going to start trading in goods, they're going to start trading in valuables like sugar, oil, they're going to just avoid using your money. And when that happens, a nation collapses. You can look at human history and you will see when you have hyperinflation, when people end up laying with stacks of cash in the street, that's a sign that really dark times are coming ahead. So obviously the politicians are now worried, And the people in charge, the wealthy, the 1%, they're worried as well because they realize they might lose everything they have. So they want to keep having to be the 1%. They want to maintain the power that they currently have, but at the same time fix this problem which they created. And this is when the World Economic Forum talks about the Great Reset, and the Pope talks about the Great Reset. And what you'll notice about the Great Reset, that it resets your business, your lifestyle. It doesn't reset the 1%. They're still the ones that are going to be in power. They're still the ones that are going to call the shots. It's just a reset for the little people. That's why a lot of people are upset. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. What I want to talk is about the solution that people are having. And the solution seems to be coming from China. China is also dealing with inflation. And their solution is the digital yuan. And the digital yuan is used as a template in order to create the digital dollar and the digital euro. So what is the difference between having just average dollars versus having a digital dollar? Well, these digital currencies are going to be controlled by the central bank, and it's coming within a package system, which the European Union talked about recently, the European Digital ID. And you have a couple of defense contractors in the United States also talking about these things. So what the digital ID is that every information about you as a human being is being centralized in a computer. So we're talking about your social security number if you're an American. We're talking about your age, nationality. We're talking about your medical records, your bank account. Everything that is to know about you is now centralized in this digital ID, which you might even need to access online. So the idea of online anonymity is gone. You're not going to be anonymous when you go online anymore. Everything you do when you're online is now centralized and is tied to all the other things. So every transaction that you do, when you go to holiday and you decide to do some shopping, everything is being recorded and is centralized in the system. So in this system, you have access to also what is called a digital wallet. And the digital wallet allows you to see how much money you have, but it's technically not really yours. Because at any time, and if this is like China, at any time the government can just take your money away. You can't go to an ATM and have it in your house. You can't just withdraw it so you can save it. No. Like in China, for instance, if you don't spend your money within a time period, it actually loses value. So think about it like a coupon for a clothing store. Someone gets you $100 to purchase from H&M. But you have to use the coupon by 31st December because if not, you lose that money. And that's a possibility within the system. They will be able to do that because it's centralized and they will have access to it. Now, initially, they might say, well, we're not going to do that. But how do you know they're not just going to pass a legislation and then do it? What would stop them? Like, there is no constitutional amendment which would stop people from the government to do all of these things. Again, the model is China, and in China, they're doing it. So you need to have a lot of faith, and you need to believe that the people in the government, the politicians, are very trustworthy, that the bankers really care about human rights and really care about you as a person rather than them making money in order to trust them with all of this. So you need to put a lot of faith into this if you want to go along. And think about just how much power the government would have over citizens. Like, let's say, hypothetically, there's a group of people protesting something that the government is doing. I don't know, Black Lives Matter is protesting something. If the government wants to suppress that, they can just cancel their apps and no longer do they have access to funding. I'm not saying the government will do this, but they would definitely have the power to do this. Because it's not regulated, it's not legislated. Like, they could, why not? It's a program that comes from the government and the government can just restrict access from you. It's very similar to what happened under socialism in my country, where the government would give people free housing, but it wasn't really your house. Like, you could just live there, and if you upset the government, they could kick you out. If the government wanted to, for some reason, do a weird project and move people from the countryside to the city, they could literally kick you out because it wasn't your house. You could pay rent and you could live there, but at any point, for whatever reason, the government could just kick you out because you didn't own the house. And with that experience in mind, with that lived experience from Eastern Europe, what happens when the government owns the stuff you're using, I know just how open to abuse this system is. I mean, sure, you can sue, but the government can just shut down your wallet. Good luck buying a lawyer. I mean, it's a centralized system. Like, you give so much power concentrated into the hands of the banks and the government that I just don't understand why anyone would want to go along with it. So, the other option is Bitcoin. Now, with Bitcoin, of course, people are free. There is no centralization. People can just freely trade. They can use currency the same way we're using now. So if you have major inflation, if the currency becomes worthless, people can use Bitcoin just fine. But it's not centralized. They will not have the same power like they do with this system. Like, think about it this way. Let's say that they want to stop global warming. And one of the ways that they know how to stop global warming, and it seems that scientists agree, is by taxing people. If you tax people a lot, then global warming goes down, right? So one is to stop them from assigning a carbon value to each product. So for example, cow beef. Now cow beef, I'm being told, is very harmful for the environment. So you might actually have to spend more money to buy, the more cow beef you buy. So they would have, okay, every single citizen has 2 kilograms of cow beef that they can buy. If you want to buy more than 2 kilograms, you have to pay double. If you want to buy more than 4, you have to pay 8 times the price. With this system, they would actually be able to implement it with an AI. Or they could just stop you from buying altogether. You would go and the app would give you an error. They could do this. And I don't see what would stop them, to be honest. So this is why a lot of people are concerned about it. This is not, and by the way, I just want you to understand from this video, I'm not saying this would happen. What I am saying is that this system is open to abuse. Like, it's possible that if this system is implemented, politicians will do this, and there is nothing you can do about it because you don't own your money anymore. And if you don't own your money, you're not independent. And if you're not independent, then the government doesn't work for you. The government is ruling you. It's like being a child and you have mommy and daddy giving you allowance. As a kid, there's nothing you can tell to mommy and daddy because you're living under their house, their rules, they're giving you money. Even if you have an argument with mommy and daddy and you're 100% in the right and they're 100% in the wrong, you still have to take it. There's nothing you can do because you live under their house. And I'm telling you this from Eastern Europe. We lived under a system like this. We know when abuses can happen because we lived abuses. Before communism, if you were to tell a person, so can you imagine if the government could just kick you out of your house and tell you to go to a city and provide you a house there? They would be like, no, of course not. Like, the government doesn't have that power, but that's insane. But under socialism, that's literally what happened. All nations start free, but they have the potential of becoming tyrannical. And a lot of people from the European Union, from America, they just can't fathom the idea that, oh, well, my country can follow a similar route. But take into account, China was also a free nation at one point. North Korea was a free nation. Fascist Germany was a free nation. So it can happen. It's in the possibility of humans to become authoritarian. And this system, you have an example from China. Read about it. Read about the digital yuan and see if you like it. See if you enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, then you should be concerned. And you should also be concerned that this system is not being discussed right now in the public square. You can find it on the internet. There's websites where important experts are talking about it, but they're not including the average citizen in the conversation. And that should concern you. Because by including the average citizen in the conversation, they could have concerns. They could bring up issues. Like, you know, a lot of people would like it, by the way. Personally, I would like if I were to have all my information in my phone and I could just walk around. I wouldn't have to do my taxes. I wouldn't have to hire an accountant because the government would do my taxes for me. If I get a fine, I wouldn't have to go pay it. It would be automatically deducted. Like, I personally would like this system because it's convenient. But I have a lot of reservations regarding its security and regarding potential abuses. And people should raise them up and they should talk about them. They should be able to discuss them in an open forum. And unfortunately, we're not having any of that. Let me know what you guys think and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.